If you're thinking about selling your San Diego home, you're probably asking yourself, should I renovate it before I sell or should I not? Hey there, it's Kyle Whissel with Whissel Realty Group here in San Diego. And in this video, I want to help you make the decision on whether or not you should or should not renovate your current home before you put it onto the market. First thing I want to tell you is it's going to be very much dependent on the market conditions. If you are in a red hot market where there is a shortage of homes for sale, a lot of times you can get by with a little bit less renovation because when buyers are out there looking, there's not a lot of choices for them. Well, when there's not a lot of choices, buyers might be willing to make do with things that might not be exactly what they want, but since there's no other options, they'll go ahead and take it and deal with it. Whereas if you're in a market where there's a lot of homes for sale, there's a surplus of supply of homes for sale, now buyers might have 10 different choices. They're gonna be a little bit more picky and choosy about the home that they ultimately do pick. So you might have to do a little bit more in a market like that. So that's the first thing to consider, is the market conditions in which you're up against when you're thinking about selling that home. The next thing is the one non-negotiable that I recommend on every single home when it comes to renovations is finish the unfinished projects. There's nothing worse than walking through a home and seeing one wire sticking out of a wall where you could have probably finished that little electrical project for a couple $100. But a buyer sees that electrical wire sticking out of the wall that goes to nowhere, and their brain instantly turns a molehill into a mountain, and they start thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to rewire the entire home, and what else did they not finish? Like, people lose their mind over the smallest little things. So any of those unfinished projects that you have, you gotta take care of those. Another one that I was just in a home the other day in Bay Park, and we look up on the ceiling, and there you could see that they had done a patch job in the ceiling and they never painted it. Well, where does your brain go? Well, if there's a patch job in the ceiling, the roof was probably leaking and made there's gonna be mold and the whole house is gonna fall down. Like, it is insane how insane people can go when it comes to these tiny little things. So you've gotta finish all those unfinished projects. You want to have the home come at a move-in ready home. If buyers come in and start thinking, I gotta do this, and I gotta do this, I gotta do this, and what about this, what about that? They're gonna freak out. So that's gonna be the second thing to consider, is always finish those unfinished projects. And then the third thing is you want to be reasonable with what you do that's gonna get the most bang for the buck. I have sellers come to me a lot of times and they're like, oh, I just did this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, why did you do that? You literally just threw money away. I met with a client over the weekend and I went out to his home and he was like, oh yeah, I'm putting some new sliders in here and I'm gonna do this. I'm like, just no, stop, like just don't. His house has a totally dysfunctional floor plan. The home is in really rough shape. Whoever buys this particular home is going to come in and completely renovate the entire thing. There's no sense buying a sliding glass door when somebody might completely change the entire floor plan. Now, on the flip side of things, I had another client recently where we went out to their home and the home looked really nice, except the master bathroom, it had just some old, like, dark oak cabinets, which is just very out of style today. And we were able to come in there for, a few $100s and just throw a fresh coat of paint onto those cabinets. And we ended up selling that home for $20,000 above what the most recent home sold for in that same exact community. So there's gonna be times and places where, right, the one house made no sense. I didn't want him to spend a single penny. And there's gonna be other homes where it might make sense to spend a few $100 or a few $1,000s, because a few $100 or a few $1,000 could be $10,000, $20,000 when it comes to that price. So the key is you really gotta be working with an expert that knows the market conditions, has the connections to help you finish these projects, and knows which projects are gonna give you a positive return on investment and which ones are gonna give you a negative return on investment where you're literally just throwing money away. We'd love to be that person to help advise you. If you're interested in having us come out, do a walkthrough of your home, no cost, feel free to call or text us, no obligation, 619-655-3400, 619-655-3400. I'm Kyle Whissel with Whissel Realty Group. Thanks for watching.